afternoon and good morning or good evening, wherever you are in the world watching this broadcast. I'm Michael DiMartino. I'm your host for the next few minutes of time, and I get the honor of interviewing amazing solutionaries from all around the world that are doing incredible projects, have amazing organizations that are really at the cutting edge of the regenerative and sustainability movement. So today I don't have to travel too far across the oceans, but I will be traveling a little bit out west. And I'm really honored to have this time to do this interview, not only with an amazing person, but someone who's become a friend and collaborator. I want to welcome to Solutionaries, Carmen Milagro.
Thank you, Michael. I'm just excited to be here with you, and it's kind of quiet where it feels like it's just the two of us and our viewers. So it's kind of a nice break.
Well, you prefaced that really well because, as you know, we've done several broadcasts with you as part of Regenerative Media TV. And Regenerative Media TV is, of course, a platform that we did a soft launch on Earth Day weekend with three broadcasts. We did an Earth Day event, we did individual and Indigenous land sovereignty and regenerative stewardship conference. And we also did Build Back Green Global, which is a campaign to respond to victims and communities affected by climate change. We don't want to debate climate change. We know it's happening, whether it's a natural cycle or accelerated by human activity, but nonetheless, it's happening and people are greatly being affected by it. But we thought, especially since we're more in this collaborative space of co-creating and finding how the work that we do help to support each other, we found it's really nice to have these quiet human moments of not a big event with lots of people on and spectators and roundtable to just drop in and really get to know more about you and, of course, Divina World Foundation. So to start with, would love to just know a little bit about um, who Carmen Milagro is and what brought you through really your personal journey to bring you to this moment of launching this exciting endeavor and project called Divina World Foundation with all of the different aspects that you're doing.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Michael. I really appreciate it. I guess, really I should start just, as a young person. I never quite fit the mold that other people expected me to fill, but I was really blessed and I was really fortunate to have my mom in my corner who believed in me so much that she's really the reason. She's the inspiration behind the work that I do. She's the reason that I am the person that I am, because there was in a culture, where typically girls are told to be quiet, to be more submissive, typically in the Latino Hispanic culture. Um, she didn't raise me that way. She raised me quite differently from a lot of her contemporaries. And so I had the opportunity to really come into my own fairly early in my life, and I recognize that I'm so lucky that that is unusual and rare. I didn't grow up with the typical pressures of having to be a doctor or an accountant. She knew that I was an artist at heart, and she fostered that. She allowed me to always be myself in whatever situation I was. And I think one of the things that she taught me out of every life lesson that I could ever share with a young person is to just be yourself, no matter what the cost or the conflict for other people. That's their problem. And so I just grew up with a very defined sense of self because always had my back. And I could probably talk your ear off and tell you all the different, experiences and, things that happened at school or at catechism where she always had my back. So I sort of feel like that really launched me into the world of going forward as a young person, as an artist, as a young woman, as an adult woman, to speak freely, be kind, but stand your ground when someone is trying to stop you from doing or stop you from being who you're supposed to be. So I think it's one of those, the core fundamental of who I am, which has allowed me to be super, super creative. I love business just as much as I love being an artist and creating music. So for me, building companies and putting projects together, being the architect of collaborations, it's all a part of it. It all, to me, at the end of the day, it's about being a member of a band. That I can equate that in everything that I do, everything that I've ever done, everything that I've ever attempted. It's always about collaboration for me. I'm not a competitive person, although with myself, I strive to be the best that I could possibly be. So I guess that's a little bit of an internal competitiveness, but not with other people. I'd rather collaborate. And in my bands and my music projects, for me, the greatest joy is bringing together talented people. Usually they are more talented than I am. I'm usually the least talented in my projects, but it's that joy of collaborating and having an idea, and then other people have input so that what you end up with is so much greater and so much more impressive, so much more meaningful because you're collaborating together versus competing against one another. So that's
Well,
kind
it's so interesting. That's why I love, typically a lot of times with media, everything is a soundbite
right.
or it becomes an infomercial. And of course, we're here to talk about your work and kind of showcase that. But I love doing the human aspect of this work as far as having this show Solutionaries, because whenever I hear people talk, whatever brought them to this point of transformation or initiation or empowering them to do the work that they're doing right now, it's always an incredible and enlightening human story that helps to kind of inspire people. Actually, Baba Ramdas said many years ago, um, many people know him from the book Be Here Now, that the greatest institution of social change, it happens in the human heart, and it happens when people are inspired. So it's always inspiring to hear these stories and hearing what you are saying, because I was also an athlete, and I was growing up as a little Italian boy to be very competitive in sports, kind of like the Roman gladiator. And for me, which has happened with other people I've interviewed, they had actually what we call like literally a near death experience. I was hit by a car, but people have these um, transformational moments where everything kind of congeals into this epiphany of like um, reevaluating our value system and the what the work we're supposed to do, and how that even can turn into legacy level of contributions to society. So I always enjoy hearing people's story, and just the way you were brought up and the ethics, and now that you're obviously years later, and you're birthing this whole midwifing of Divina World Foundation. Tell us a little bit about what was that moment that brought you to that realization, and what the foundation is.
Sure. Well, I'm going to go back again to about when I was 14. So we're talking a long time ago. I've always imagined creating this. I just didn't know it at 14 years old, how I was going to do it. I forgot about it for a while, but for me, it was this idea of I've been impacted not just by my mother, but so many teachers and instructors and coaches, and mostly women. And I feel like there were these women that came into my life, and you've used the word in other conversations that we've had, and I love this word. You use I've heard you use the term the grandmothers, right? Our spiritual guides, these wise women, these shaman women. And I have to say, my entire life, I've been guided and nurtured by these types of women. And I love this term grandmother, because it implies the knowledge and the wisdom and the kindness and the caretaker, the nurturer. And I'm about to turn 60 and not too far off the future here. And I feel like I get to be called that. I am that, or godmother, or fairy godmother to some of the gals that I work with and I coach. And at 14, when you are surrounded by all these different women who encourage you and support you. And again, Michael, I realize that I'm very blessed and I'm very lucky. Not everyone has these opportunities, but for me, that was my reality. And so back then, I knew I wanted to be an educator, but I also didn't quite fit into the boxes as I was growing older, going to school. I didn't quite fit into all those boxes that our typical educational system has designed for us. I didn't fit into those boxes as a student, and I didn't fit into those boxes as someone who wanted to instruct and educate. So I'm going to fast forward quite a bit here, but it did lead me to the world of coaching, and I became a behavioral coach. Gosh, this was probably 20 years ago, which at that time, coaching wasn't really a thing like it is now.
Right.
And I didn't really know too much about it other than I am going to share this little side note because I think it speaks to following your heart and following your instinct. I saw an ad back in the day, and it was a regular newspaper ad. So I'm really dating myself. But they were advertising that they wanted a behavioral coach, and it was for a nonprofit in the San Francisco Bay Area. At that time, that nonprofit had been around they had already been around for 50 years. And they're still here. They're still doing this work. It's an organization called Edgewood Center for Children and Families. And the reason I started looking to apply to go work for a nonprofit was because I was about ready to launch my first nonprofit back then. And that was, I ended up launching it in 2005. So 19 years ago, right? My math is correct. And so I wanted to launch the nonprofit at that time. And I'm that kind of person, and you probably are too, I suspect, maybe, but I have to just dive in and get my hands dirty and get in there and do it. I do a lot better than just, someone who reads the directions. I tend to
Well,
just not.
well, it's very interesting too, just hearing you say that because the validation now of a whole area of what we call experiential education
Correct.
actually has value. And if when I was in school, we used to have things like vocational training, wood shop and metal
That's
shop and
exactly.
culinary arts. And unfortunately, a lot of the education system has drastically changed to kind of um, reciting or regurgitating information that basically people read from a page or that's taught from the head of a classroom. And um, especially here in the States, we've lost a lot of that kind of kinesthetic learning, the hands-on, the immersive experience. And we've definitely seen, um, a decline in some of the education system, which is also why they've introduced the whole idea. First, it was STEM, it was right, science, technology, engineering, and math. And then STEM became STEAM.
Yeah.
because it was science, technology, engineering, art, and
Correct.
math. And of course, a lot of the physical education part has been taken out of education. And now they've introduced STEAM is now STREAM, which is science, technology, resilience, engineering, art, and math. And of course, resilience is the idea of being resilient as a human, like the human element of education and how we respond, how we communicate, our social skills, et cetera. So it's fascinating because what I'm sensing is people like about us living through different types of social changes and different structures and looking at where the world is now to 50 years ago, and even now with the introduction of AI, things are really changing. But as you're saying, following our bliss, being a maverick, following our intuition, believing in ourselves, and just kind of diving in head first is a really powerful way to experience, and also to litmus test what our interests and what our passions and what really inspires us, which probably is really crystallizing right now with the whole Divina World Foundation, and also you're launching a university and green economy and doing things with the arts too. So give us a little insight of um, what are you doing? It's amazing.
Right. Well, thank you. I mean, but it's also to add one more element to what you just said, because I agree 100%. But the idea of diving in and doing the work yourself, and you know, just it's also part of our, not just our educational component, that I think we have maybe, what's the word I'm looking for? We've We've
Diluted.
tried, yes, thank you. We've diluted it. We've tried to insulate students from failure, which I believe is completely a disservice to young people. Because if you don't fail, then you don't know that you can get up. If you don't fail, you don't know that you have other options, that you can create other solutions, that you can come up with other innovations and ideas. So for me, it was, going in to answer this ad, to go work for this nonprofit. And I had never worked for a nonprofit before, but I knew that if I wanted to create my own nonprofit, for me, I had to go work in one and experience it and learn it from the inside out. And I'll just give you a quick little um, lesson learned from doing it that way. I soon realized in the interview, room before going in and meeting, there were two PhDs that were doing the hiring. They were doing the interviews for this position, and they knew exactly who they wanted, and they had the job description, all of that. But I learned very quickly just from talking to people. I tend to talk to people. And in that room, there were PhDs, there were people with their double masters, and I thought, I have two choices here. I am not a PhD. I don't have a master's degree in early childhood education. I could quit and walk out the door and no one will ever know that I was even here. Or I could just go in and ask them some questions about the nonprofit. So that's what kept me there. And I ended up getting the job. And once all the paperwork was signed, and once I was in it and I was being trained as a behavioral coach, I did ask both doctors, Dr. Ruth and Dr. Frank, um, you know, I know for a fact that I was not qualified like all these other people. Why did you hire me? And they said, because you are the type of person that they know all the book learned information that they need, but we can teach you that. We can teach you our process. We can teach you all the technical things. What we can't teach is that ability to connect to the community that you are already a part of. And so the work that they were doing was very, very important, because what I ended up being as a behavioral coach was I was the voice for the children in school, in this specific school. I did not report to the parents. I did not report to the principal or the school district or the counselors. I was the voice for the children in this specific school who were marginalized, they were underserved, and they were failing. The school district was failing, but because this nonprofit was able to go in and create this program, it was a pilot program, which is what allowed me to develop later on my Wellness 360 approach, right? Approaching your well-being from every possible angle that you can. So I learned from these two PhDs how to do that. And I do want to share with you just another quick little nuance of a story. One of the children that I ended up, that was my case study that I had to take on. He was 5 years old, Michael. He was in kindergarten, and the school system, from the teachers, the principal, everyone had already dismissed this child. And what I mean by that is they had already come to the conclusion based on one question that they had asked. Now, I wasn't present during this, but it was all documented. And that specific question was, they were asking kindergartners, in front of the teachers and the principal and some school, unified school district people, what do you want to be when you grow up? And according to the documentation that I had in that case, apparently this little boy named Julian, we'll call him Julian, jumped up, he raised his hand, he was so excited to answer the question. And so, of course, they directed the question to him because the other children were quite shy. He wasn't. And he answered that question by saying that he wanted to grow up to be a gang leader. And you can imagine the the gasps in the room.
Wow.
And the instant judgment of this little Hispanic boy who out loud said he wanted to be a gang leader. And it was my job to figure out what was going on because no one else bothered. No one else bothered to find out about this child's environment. Why would he say that? What was he experiencing in his little life? Long story short, his father was incarcerated due to gang-related incident. His cousins, his uncles were either dead or incarcerated or in the gangs. His mother was working 3 jobs trying to keep food on the table. This is the only thing that this child knew. But when I did my report, I was supposed to be objective. That's impossible for me. And so for me, it was standing in front of these group of adults and basically saying, shame on you. Because not only did you not do this work, but you also didn't listen to him. You didn't hear his words. He never said he wanted to be a gang member. What he said was he wanted to be a gang leader. And isn't it our job as the elders in the community, as the leaders of education, as the providers of knowledge, isn't it our job to figure out how to connect to a child like Julian and help him, give him tools to lead him down another path with the same sense of self and the same confidence to stand up in front of a room full of adults and say, I want to be this. So taking that premise, being a behavioral coach, I then got into the 360 aspect. As I mentioned, the 2 PhDs, they taught me this approach to environment, to everything about your body, as far as where do you live? What are you eating? What are you consuming? Not just food wise, but information wise. What are you watching on television? What are you watching when you go to the movies? What are your choices for nurturing your spirit, your soul, as well as your body? I think we as a society place a lot of importance on physical, on our physical beings, but I think we're starting to realize that it's the whole package. So to answer your question, Divina World Foundation is based on the principles of our community and those that need more help and need more tools. And, I can go into the, like you said, the infomercial, but
No, and that's great to know because again, this is the human story of what inspired us all to do this commitment, and it's always not easily monetizable because there is a humanitarian nature to what we do, and I think more and more, with the whole self-help movement and people becoming more aware about, during the pandemic, having more time to reprioritize their life and the quality of life, that these things have become really important. And it's amazing just hearing you talk. I did a lot of work in schools with a program I created called World Beat, which was about self-esteem development and leadership skills, working with youth around drumming. And I was fortunate enough to be able to do that all over the world. And as you can tell, like you said, being in a band, when you give the children the instruments, you encourage their voice to be heard, you can kind of see where some people have maybe too much leadership ability, where it's almost like dictatorial, or others are very timid in the back. So the idea is in the circle, again, that everyone has a voice and is involved in that. So amazing, inspiring story. So how does that now? How does that translate into Divina World Foundation, which has a few different branches, and you're working with art and music and wellness, but also um, you're launching a whole university aspect too.
right. So back then, when I was doing that work as the behavioral coach, and then what I did from that experience was that was my first, as I mentioned, I wanted to create my first nonprofit, and that was called Peanut Butter and Jam Music Sessions for Kids. And I did that for 13 years, self-sustainable. I didn't want to be beholding to other entities. So we did all our own fundraising. I created the programs. The idea was just like you, like yourself. Um, the idea was to give children a place to express themselves through music, etc. And I saw how much that allows children to become self-confident, to walk in the world in a different way, holding their head up high, knowing that they are great at something or good at something, and also that it makes them feel good and that they are being heard and they're being seen and they're able to express themselves. So Divina World Foundation's focus is now really to oh gosh, help eradicate the disparity and the lack of access to the health and wellness resources for our Indigenous, Hispanic, and Latino and other overlooked peoples, but specifically our veterans, our farm workers, our second chancers, and our cancer warriors. So within these communities, we have these other sub-communities that are oftentimes just forgotten. And I think we're really wanting to acknowledge these needs, enhance the communication, celebrate them, the accomplishments of our most vulnerable communities. And it's through that Wellness 360 approach. And really, our overarching goal is to embrace, like you said, the use of arts, technology, music, educational events. We're going to raise funds to create our headquarters, which is the Indigenous World Music Hall of Fame. And we'll launch our Indigenous Holistic Health and Wellness Family Festival, other regional worldwide events. We want to focus on sustainability, creating a thriving, diverse, and inclusive community, and raise the elevate that, right? Elevate that combined approach of live stream platforms like Regen Media TV and Expand ITV, using edutainment and other medias and edtech resources to collaborate with other nonprofits so that we can facilitate access. We can help people, be more connected in a different way, in a way that works for everyone and allows us to include as many people, as many cultures as possible. I mean, that's pretty much in a nutshell.
Right. And what's great is I'm showing right now the website, and if you want to just take us on a brief tour here. And
Sure.
I love the diversity of what you're sharing. And of
Thank you.
course, you were mentioning that you come from a Latin American ancestry, and that, of course, not only are, um, especially here in North America, the Latina community sometimes marginalized, but also women are also very oppressed and marginalized. And I will say a lot of that is really by design,
Sure.
of this kind of old paradigm, patriarchal, Euro colonial centric mindset. Um, but also, again, you're working with many of these people. So share us a little bit about, and again, um, you're not just doing this as some sort of uh, endeavor about ROI as a financial thing. You're doing this because of this humanitarian work, and really what I can sense from your direct personal experience. But share with us a little bit here about the website and what we're seeing.
Sure, sure. Well, again, one of the things that should come up, but I'm not sure why it's not, is the quote that I chose to introduce the world to our world, Divina World Foundation, is by honoring our ancestors, we honor ourselves. I do believe, I come from, I've always, personally, for me, I've always had to navigate and travel between two worlds. There's the Latin American side of my family and my culture, and then there's the Spanish side of my family and my culture. And I am part of both, and I embrace both. And so I've just always been that person who has, my my first language is not English. My first language is Spanish. And so I just feel like when we celebrate everything about ourselves and we tie into our indigenous roots, because I do believe that every culture has their ties back, in the indigenous roots, and music specifically, which is why the Indigenous and Latino Music Hall of Fame is what I consider the epicenter of where we can do all of our work. And building that is as an actual physical being to celebrate music. But I think when you have this ability to reach people through music, it's through their heart, through their spirit, through their soul, and you augment it with food and culture and other arts, and you bring in the education component, you bring in the technology. It's not either or, in my viewpoint and my opinion. It's taking the best of everything and sharing it and showcasing it. So I'm not sure if, are you able to scroll down a little bit, Michael? Because we can,
Yeah.
oh, perfect. Thank you. So, it's a very, I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory here, right? Just a little bit more encapsulated of what we're trying to do, but it's also bringing together certain sponsors and other companies and other organizations that are already doing incredible similar work for different reasons, obviously, and having a place where we could all collaborate. I'm bringing the band. I'm putting the band together, and a part of that process is inviting our specific board members and our advisory council members. As you can see here, Mr. Henry Lozano, he's the author of Borderlands. He has an incredible story. The story that he's written, it talks about his upbringing. It talks about his um, choices as a young man. He's a two-time felon who ended up working as an advisor to the presidency of the United States. How does that happen? And I think these are examples and stories that we can share. I have to say, I think out of everything that I do, the role that I enjoy the most and that I celebrate the most about myself is being a storyteller. And that's what we're trying to do, you know. So yes, as you're scrolling, thank you. You can see what our mission is. There's the 8 wonders. We're deploying our peanut butter and jam studio touring bus. We're producing content and programs and television and live stream. We want to bridge communities, not just Hispanic and not just Indigenous. We want to provide spa outings for cancer warriors because there is a need there for this group within our community that seems to be forgotten sometimes. And I have,
And you have chocolate.
yes. Yeah.
Wow,
So yeah.
amazing.
So there but it's it all is all interlocking. It all will work. It's not just one person doing all this. It's all these different communities coming together to really just appreciate and celebrate our humanity, our collective humanity. That's honestly, that's the simplest way that I could put it.
Right. Well, we live in an age of simplifying things, making it easy for inclusivity, and stuff that has real heart and compassion and relevance in in our human family and our ability and our need to kind of pollinate and germinate our cross-cultural common ground. So
Really.
um, fantastic. I know you have a hard stop coming up soon, but I wanted to make sure that if you had any last thoughts. This is kind of a brief getting to know you, and it's incredible to hear your story.
Thank you. No,
And
I appreciate this so much. Thank you.
absolutely. Well, you're always a very pleasant to spend time, and we appreciate your professionalism and your divine feminine essence and the work that you're doing and kind of blazing a path of innovation and leadership and creativity. And it definitely comes through in your work and your vision. Any last things you'd like to share, or any words of inspiration from the book of life from Carmen Milagro and the Divina World Foundation?
Yes, thank you. I think this is a great opportunity to say to you, Michael. I mean, I haven't known you that long, but I do feel like I've known you for a long time. And a lot of times I believe that we meet people who are they're more than just friends. They're more than just colleagues. They are people who inspire you on a level that you didn't even know sometimes that you needed to be inspired from. And that's what I feel that is happening with the more we get to know one another. I love taking some of our conversations and thinking about them and bringing them into perspective into the work that I'm doing. I feel like I have to amend our website because, um, again, based on the conversations that you and I have had, I see Divina World Foundation now as welcoming not just the groups that I've already identified, but solutionaries. You said another word the other day, activators. And then, change makers and advocates. This is our community that I'm hoping to build, that I'm in the process of building, bringing together these types of people, this type of energy, because what are we leaving for the future for our young people? We have to include them in what we're trying to build, what we're trying to leave behind. Without including them in the process, we're just going to leave some sort of book or manifesto that they had no input in. So I would say for everyone doing this kind of work out there to remember to be as inclusive as possible, not just for inclusivity's sake, but because when you combine the wisdom and the knowledge and the life experience of the elders like us with the young people who are going to carry the torch for us, they're hungry for that connection with their elders. We have to figure out, just like it was our job to figure out what Julian needed, the tools that he needed to thrive and to not grow up in the darkness that he was living in. I think it's our job now to figure out the way to communicate with our young people, not just to dismiss them as, oh, this generation, they're this or they're that. I think it's still our job to figure out how to connect with them and leave them the additional tools and knowledge to what they already have.
Absolutely. And for many of us, my family goes back to Italy, that, we are part of a lineage, and we are connected to these traditions that have this wealth of diversity. And as much as we need to respect, acknowledge, and savor the diversity, knowing that beneath all of that, there is a common humanity that's present. And so a couple more new words too: regenerators.
Yes.
Uh,
Okay.
we, we, we have artists who are
Oh,
activists. And
okay.
I just did an interview with Alenka from Slovenia, who
Uh-huh.
actually is doing amazing work with her art. And she's kind of aligning with the strategic alliance of people.
Yes.
And if I may be so bold and humbly say so, people like ourselves that are luminaries that are helping to shed the light
I love
of our common human family into the darkness of,
it.
so much divisiveness and so much lack and so much fear and so much of which is really poisoned the world, and it has distracted us and tainted our true human potentiality, both as individual sovereigns and as a global community.
Oh my gosh, I love this. And I have one, before we go, I have one word for you too. I came up with this word with the help of another friend of mine, another artist, another educator, another entrepreneur. And we came up with this concept of being an entrepreneurist because I never believed in the concept of a starving artist. So I think that's a new word too that we can incorporate
Wow.
into our new dictionary.
Into this regeneissance
There
of
we go.
human potential,
Oh
potential
boy.
as we
I
have
think
this regenesis, recreating from the old paradigm. Anyways, we can go on and on.
I think we
So
could. That's a whole other show.
I'm telling you, we got to be writing this down. We got to put some AI to work. Anyways, AI is a little still like we're losing some of the humanity, but I just want to say really appreciate our time together and the work that you're doing, and just the potential of collaboration and co-creating, but more importantly, without any agenda, just the purity of authentic human connection, and the fact that we can help to inspire each other, and hopefully through this broadcast of this program, Solutionaries, that we can help to, another word coming, galactivate the the human potential and inspire others to be part of the transformation.
I think that's wonderful. And I think the fact that, you know, I say this on, well, I don't know if you remember, but I also have my own Wellness 360 show. And I say this all the time. I do this because I feel compelled to share this knowledge, to interview other people, just like what you're doing. But if it's one person whose life is changed by this one broadcast, it's worth it. It's just totally worth it. So thank you.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and it's nice just to have this quiet moment to laugh and giggle and get to share personal stories, and to get to, just be human
Yes.
and be transparent. And we thank you for your time and all the amazing work that you are doing with the Divina World Foundation, Wellness 360. You're also launching a university, and we'll have more time to talk about that. But many blessings and love and respect and support for all that you're doing.
Likewise. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for staying with us.